My sister-in-law tried to steal the spotlight at my wedding with a dramatic pregnancy announcement, but instead, her secret affair was exposed. The scene could not have been more unexpected. My wedding day turned into something out of a soap opera. Here I am, a 25-year-old woman, reflecting on the years I've spent with Jack. From the very beginning, I've noticed something about his family. While they've slowly warmed up to me, his sister, Kylie, has always been a thorn in my side. But that's just the surface of this family's complex dynamics. Jack is the eldest, and his parents, who are immigrants from Asia, placed immense pressure on both him and his younger sister, Kylie, to excel academically. They always expected the top marks, no room for anything less. Jack, however, was more inclined to sports than studies. He was a natural, especially in chess. He'd stay after school, immersed in the game, part of the school's chess club. But his parents? They didn't approve. They told him that chess was a waste of time, that anyone could play it. They wanted him focused on more important things. Though he wasn't a bad student, he wasn't the star pupil they envisioned. Kylie, on the other hand, had no such struggles. She was academically gifted, always the top scorer, and spent hours each evening working on homework. Naturally, she became the golden child in their eyes, and Jack? Well, he often felt invisible in comparison. He once confided in me how his parents would always compare their grades, showering Kylie with rewards and affection, grand birthday parties, sleepovers, and extravagant presents. Meanwhile, Jack's birthday was a stark contrast. His parents would barely acknowledge it, always telling him he wasn't worthy of a celebration until he worked harder. Just writing this breaks my heart, knowing how much pain Jack carried as a child, constantly feeling like he was falling short. I've seen him break down, sharing the hurt he felt growing up in the shadow of his sister's success. The tension only escalated as they got older. When it was time for college, Jack's parents made it clear they could only afford to pay for Kylie's tuition. Jack was told he would need to find scholarships or take out loans to pay for his. It was a gut punch. How could they do that to him? The fight that ensued was nothing short of explosive. Jack lashed out, questioning why he was even born if they clearly didn't care about him. His parents responded with the typical sacrifices they had made over the years and how it was time for him to grow up. Kylie sided with them, even calling Jack a loser. She told him he needed to suck it up for her sake. That's when Jack realized he would never be on equal footing with her. He did get accepted into college on a scholarship, studying computer science, and decided to move out. It was clear that his relationship with his family had reached its breaking point. His parents didn't even bother to help him move in, nor did they show up to see him off. They didn't seem to care. Years passed, and they would occasionally try to reconnect, but Jack kept them at a distance, keeping their conversations brief. When he graduated, they begged to be there for his big moment, but Jack denied them. He reminded them of how they hadn't even bothered to pay for his tuition while they funded Kylie's. That was the final straw. They fought, but Jack held his ground, and his parents eventually respected his wishes. By contrast, my own family has always been supportive. I'm an only child, and my parents, both professors, encouraged me to pursue whatever I loved. They've always had my back, no comparisons, no pressure. It's been a different experience altogether, one of encouragement and unconditional support. I met Jack a few years ago when we both worked in the same office complex, just on different floors. His company was on the 2nd, mine on the 7th. We would often meet in the elevators, chat with mutual friends, and eventually, a party brought us closer. He was charming, sweet, and genuinely kind. Jack became the boyfriend who would surprise me with flowers every month, who'd bring me my favorite cheesecake when I had cramps, and would cook dinner for me without a second thought. He wasn't afraid to express how much he loved me. It didn't take long for me to move in with him, as it just felt right. We spent so much time together already, and living together made perfect sense. I've heard horror stories from friends about how their boyfriends don't help around the house, but Jack is the complete opposite. He's more of a perfectionist than I am and deep cleans our home every weekend. We have this unspoken routine. He cooks, I clean up. He does the laundry, and I fold it. That's how we operate. Our partnership is built on balance and mutual respect. When the time came to meet each other's families, Jack was open with me about his strained relationship with his parents. He told me how they had always treated him unfairly, comparing him to Kylie and making him feel less than. Despite the tension, when Jack finally reached out to them about me, they were thrilled. They couldn't wait to meet me and immediately scheduled a lunch date. I was nervous. This was an important step in our relationship, and I wanted to make a good impression. When we met, Jack's parents were surprisingly warm. As soon as they learned about my academic background, their attitude shifted even more, and they became noticeably more polite. In hindsight, yes, it's clear they warmed up to me because of my academic success. Still, I didn't mind. It was an important step for both Jack and me. They told me, rather candidly, that after Jack had distanced himself from them, they had spent a lot of time reflecting. They acknowledged how they had failed him and even awkwardly apologized. It was an unexpected turn, and it felt like a step in the right direction. Jack was surprised but appreciative. It was nice to see them making an effort. But then, the door opened. Kylie walked in. The mood in the room shifted instantly. Jack hadn't been told that Kylie would even be there, and as soon as he saw her, he was visibly annoyed. His parents, sensing the tension, began to explain themselves, saying that they thought it was the perfect time for Kylie to let go of the past so their family could move forward. His mother, softening the mood, said Kylie was here only because she was genuinely happy for him. But the awkwardness was palpable. Kylie, though polite, gave me a hug, but she seemed to be holding herself back, super shy, at least on the surface. Then it happened. She ignored Jack entirely, as if he wasn't even in the room. Not a word, not a glance, just cold indifference. When his parents started to boast about my academic achievements, I could see a shift in her. Her demeanor hardened. She turned her attention toward me, asking about my work and where I went to university. It was as if she was interrogating me, digging into my background. But that wasn't enough. She subtly ridiculed the field of urban planning, casually mocking the impact it supposedly has on the environment. Then came the real shocker. She asked me how I felt about murdering trees. I was stunned. Her tone, her insinuation, it was clear now. She was trying to put me down, trying to make me feel small in front of her parents. The fact that they seemed to like me was something she couldn't handle. Throughout the lunch, it wasn't just the mocking. It was the constant passive aggression, correcting me over every little thing I said, even if it was something as trivial as a comment about the weather. Every word I spoke seemed to rub her the wrong way. By the time we finished eating, the tension could have been sliced with a knife. Jack's father, attempting to keep the peace, offered to pay the bill. But out of nowhere, Kylie cut in, saying I should be the one paying since they were all here because of me. Her voice dripped with sarcasm as she added that, considering how much I earned, it would be the perfect time to make good use of my money. The audacity! I'd earned my success, and yet she had the nerve to talk to me like that? It was beyond offensive. I'm sure my face showed my displeasure, because almost immediately, Jack's parents came to my defense. His father, firm but calm, told Kylie she was being rude. His mother joined in, telling her to shut her mouth with a finality that left no room for argument. The storm inside Kylie was evident as she stood up, clearly enraged, and stormed out of the restaurant. Jack's parents, visibly uncomfortable, apologized profusely. They explained how Kylie was someone who took time to warm up to new people, though I could tell they were embarrassed by her behavior. I nodded, not wanting to make a scene. I figured I would just let it go, thinking that as long as I kept the peace for Jack's sake, I would never have to deal with her again. If only I'd known. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag about Kylie. Unlike Jack's family, my parents absolutely adored him. They loved getting to know him, and would always check in on me, especially in the years we'd been dating. They made sure to let me know how happy they were about us living together. But Kylie? She never left me alone. Every single time I posted something on my social media, she was the first one to view it. I have a public account where I share my professional accomplishments and designs, and although I don't have a massive following, I noticed when she'd see every single post without fail, but never interact. She never followed me, never liked anything. It became clear she was watching me, not in a friendly way, but in an obsessive way. Then, when Jack's parents started to spend more time with us, it only got worse. We had a family group chat, just the four of us, and it would be quiet most of the time. The only activity was when we'd meet up, take photos, and share them in the chat. But Kylie? She didn't join us anymore, not since the lunch. Yet, she'd still view all the pictures. It was like a silent protest, like she wanted to be part of something but refused to join in. And then came the moment that made everything so much worse. Kylie sent a Facebook link to the group chat. At first, I thought it was just a random link, but curiosity got the better of me. I clicked it, and there it was, an old photo of me with my high school boyfriend. It was a picture I hadn't thought about in years. We were hugging, looking carefree. I was so caught off guard, I had no idea how Kylie even found it. Why send it to the group? But I wasn't going to shy away from the truth. I told her it was me, and yes, that was my ex. Her response was swift, almost immediate. She said I seemed awfully close to him and that I should ask him to remove the picture. She went on, saying it was no longer appropriate. It took all I had to keep my cool. This woman had stalked my past so thoroughly that she found an old picture, yet she had the nerve to accuse me of doing something wrong? I was speechless. But Jack, thankfully, was not. He jumped in, defending me, saying that it was a perfectly normal picture, nothing to be ashamed of. Kylie's response? A passive-aggressive jab. She said Jack should date someone with better standards. The nerve! I was seething with anger. If she had been in front of me at that moment, I swear, I would have ripped her hair out. But Jack, ever the calm one, shot back, saying he did, in fact, have better standards, since I made 4 times more than she did. That hit her hard. I could almost feel her shock. Kylie had always been the one to look down on others. She worked as a graphic designer, but her parents had made it clear that she didn't earn enough to live on her own. So yeah, I bet it stung. Kylie, visibly rattled, left the group in a fury. Later, she called Jack, crying and screaming, furious that he had insulted her in front of everyone. Jack didn't care. And that, I think, only made her angrier. That evening, Jack's parents called to apologize once more. They had spoken to Kylie, and apparently, she was going to be better moving forward. They told me they had no issues with the photo and that everything would be fine from here on out. I couldn't help but feel awkward talking about my ex with my in-laws, but at least they weren't like Kylie. After that, Kylie distanced herself from us. She never came near the group, never bothered me again. But things weren't over yet. A few months later, we found out Kylie had eloped to Las Vegas with a man named Isaac. Her parents were blindsided. They didn't even know who he was, nor had they been invited to the wedding. It turned out that Kylie had been seeing Isaac for quite some time. He was 13 years older than her, and they had met when Isaac was still married. Isaac's past caught up with him when his wife finally divorced him, and when the papers were signed, Kylie ran off to marry him. She knew deep down her parents would never approve of a marriage to an older divorcee, nor would they forgive her for the affair she had with him. She had kept it a secret from them for years, never even mentioning it, as they were already upset about the age gap between her and Isaac. Jack and I only discovered the truth about Isaac when we decided to dig into his background on LinkedIn and Instagram. Beyond the affair, we genuinely hoped Kylie would start fresh after the wedding, even though we stayed silent, avoiding any contact. But then, one day, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister-in-law, Kylie. Her words were clear, apologizing for the way she treated me before. She admitted she hadn't fully accepted me as part of the family, but now she had let go of her prejudices and wanted to make things right. She invited Jack and me to dinner that weekend, hoping to build a connection. I showed the message to Jack. He hesitated, unsure about meeting with her, but I felt this could be a chance to move past the tension. She had reached out first, after all, so we agreed to go. We let her know we'd be there, and her response was full of enthusiasm. When we arrived at her new home with Isaac, it was evident that Isaac was a wealthy man. He was much older than all of us, and his house reflected that, packed with modern gadgets and sleek design. Isaac gave Jack a tour, showing off his personal space, which included a shelf filled with his collectibles. While the men got to know each other, Kylie and I sat down to talk. She apologized again for the way she had treated me and spoke about how much she had changed since marrying Isaac. I simply smiled and told her it was all water under the bridge. But then, out of nowhere, Kylie began to share her feelings about me. She told me how much she hated me for changing Jack, how he seemed more confident and happier ever since we met. I tried to explain that this was a good thing, but she was convinced that Jack had been distant from them for so long and had only reached out because of me. Though her words didn't make sense, I nodded politely, eager to move on. But then, Kylie shifted the conversation to her new life with Isaac. She started listing off his wealth, how rich he was, how she'd never have to work again. She probably talked about his many assets and cars, though I never asked. Her next question took me by surprise. "How's your work going?" she asked. I shared my recent promotion and how much I loved my design job. I could tell she wasn't really interested in that. She quickly pivoted, asking me about marriage plans with Jack. I told her we weren't in a rush, that things would happen when they were meant to. She scoffed, dismissing my answer as nonsense, and told me I needed to push Jack to propose before I got too old to have kids. I laughed, telling her that Jack and I never wanted children and we were perfectly content as we were. Her face froze in shock. Then she began questioning me, saying that as a woman, it was my duty to have children. She even asked why I was with Jack if I didn't plan to give him kids. The irritation welled up in me, and I told her that Jack and I were grown adults, able to make our own choices. That's when things escalated. Kylie shouted for Jack to come into the room, and both men rushed in. Kylie immediately turned to Jack, demanding to know if he was aware of what kind of woman he was marrying, someone who didn't want to continue his bloodline. Jack burst out laughing at her absurdity, asking her if she realized how ridiculous she sounded. But this only made her angrier. She threatened to tell their parents, saying they would never approve of our relationship. Jack wasn't having it. He shot back that no one could stop him from marrying me if that's what he wanted, and he was done with her narcissistic, controlling behavior. Things were heating up fast, so I asked Jack if we could leave. He agreed. Isaac, though apologetic, stood silently while Kylie glared at me. On the way home, I broke down in tears. I felt hurt by everything she had said, and I asked Jack if he really wanted children. He reassured me, saying he never wanted them, and I shouldn't let Kylie's outdated thinking affect me. He promised that if he had wanted something different, he wouldn't have been with me in the first place. His words comforted me a little. After that night, I blocked Kylie from all my social media accounts. I was done with her. A few months later, Jack proposed at our favorite spot, and our wedding preparations began in earnest. Our parents were thrilled for us, and we received plenty of congratulations. But Kylie, still holding a grudge, sent Jack a message, simply saying, "I hope you know what you're doing." This enraged Jack, but I couldn't help feeling a twinge of sadness that she couldn't let go of her bitterness. Then, things got even more complicated. Just 2 months ago, Jack wasn't feeling well, so I decided to cook his favorite dish. I realized we didn't have all the ingredients, so I headed to the grocery store. The first store didn't have what I needed, so I drove around until I found another one. On my way there, I passed by a cafe and saw Kylie holding hands with a younger man. At first, I thought it was Isaac, but a closer look revealed it was a guy closer to her age. They were acting all flirty, sharing kisses, and giggling like teenagers. I was stunned. As far as I knew, Kylie was still married to Isaac. If they'd broken up, Jack's parents would have told us. In disbelief, I snapped a few pictures to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Kylie never noticed me, too caught up in the moment with her companion. When I got home, I was shaking. Jack noticed something was off, and I told him everything. He was just as shocked, asking me repeatedly if I was sure. I showed him the pictures, and he agreed it wasn't Isaac. We debated whether or not we should tell Isaac, but Jack decided he'd handle it privately. He would talk to Isaac man to man, and as Kylie's husband, Isaac deserved to know the truth. The weekend came, and Jack spoke to Isaac in private. The news was earth-shattering. Isaac was devastated to learn that Kylie had been cheating on him with a younger guy, and to top it off, Kylie was pregnant. Apparently, she just found out and had been keeping it a secret, waiting for the right time to announce it. Isaac was blindsided, but he was grateful to Jack for telling him. Isaac asked us not to say anything to Kylie, promising to deal with it. Jack agreed, and we kept our distance. Then came our wedding day. Jack's parents insisted we invite Kylie, as she was family. They said it would look bad if she wasn't there. We agreed, reluctantly, but I made it clear to them that they needed to talk to her first and make sure she didn't cause a scene. They assured me they would handle it. On the day of the wedding, everything went smoothly. The ceremony was beautiful, and the reception was full of joy. When it came time for speeches, my parents spoke lovingly about me, with my dad getting teary-eyed as he talked about how proud he was of me. Jack's dad gave a heartfelt speech as well, thanking me for bringing the family closer. It was so touching that I couldn't help but tear up. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Kylie trying to grab the microphone from Jack's father. While it might have seemed innocent to others, I knew exactly what she was trying to do. I had already taken steps to avoid any confrontation. My bridesmaids were warned, and I told them to make sure the DJ cut off the mic if my sister-in-law tried to seize control. When Kylie stepped up to speak, she didn't realize right away that her voice wasn't carrying. She glanced around, confused, but Jack and I just acted oblivious, pretending like we had no idea what was going on. Later, when my maid of honor, Mara, took the mic from her, Kylie realized what had happened. The DJ's sudden switch revealed our plan to cut her off, and she snapped. In the middle of Mara's speech, Kylie shouted in disbelief, accusing us of silencing her. She made a scene, screaming about how we hadn't let her speak and that she had an important announcement. She tried to snatch the mic from Mara, but Mara held firm, refusing to let her have it. Kylie, fuming, climbed onto her chair, her voice rising with rage. "I've known all along how jealous she is of me," she shouted, her words cutting through the tension in the room. "She's such a bridezilla, she couldn't even let me announce my news." The guests stared at her in confusion, some in shock. Then, with a twisted smile, she announced, "I'm pregnant." She grinned, expecting congratulations to flood in. But instead, there was only silence and awkward glances shared among the guests. Jack's parents, visibly annoyed, whispered sharply to Kylie, urging her to stop making a scene and sit down. But it only made Kylie's face flush red with embarrassment. She turned to me, fury in her eyes, and yelled, "Are you happy now, ruining your own husband's family? This is why I never wanted him to marry a woman like you." Jack, who had been trying to stay calm up to that point, stood up, his fists clenched, looking like he was about to explode. But before he could act, Isaac, who had been sitting beside Kylie, grabbed the mic from Mara. He apologized to us for her behavior, offering his congratulations on our wedding, and then turned to Kylie. His voice dropped as he spoke, every word calculated. "I never wanted to do this publicly," Isaac said, his tone heavy. "But someone needs to teach you a lesson." Kylie stared at him, her confusion growing, as Isaac continued. "Yes, Kylie, you're pregnant. But I'm not the father of your child." The room fell silent. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and I couldn't help but cringe, realizing exactly where this was headed. Isaac's eyes locked onto hers. "Let's figure out who the father is first," he said, a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. Jack's parents, sitting in stunned silence, demanded to know what Isaac meant. He pulled out his phone, showing them pictures. Pictures of Kylie, caught in the act, cheating on Isaac for the past 2 months with another man. The guests exchanged looks of disbelief and horror, whispering among themselves. Kylie sat frozen, speechless, trying to process the fact that the truth had been exposed for all to see. Isaac never once dragged Jack and me into this mess. He simply said how his suspicions had grown over time, leading him to hire a private investigator who captured all of these incriminating photos. Jack's parents were horrified, eyes wide in shock as they scanned the pictures. Kylie, however, remained silent, her face a mask of disbelief. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that she could no longer hide from her lies. Then, Jack seized the moment, his voice cold. "Get out," he told her. "You're not welcome here anymore. I'm ashamed to be related to someone like you." The room was thick with tension as Kylie, her face contorted in rage and humiliation, stood up, fists raised, and stormed out, crying. After her dramatic exit, we tried to salvage what we could of the wedding, but the damage was done. All anyone could talk about was Kylie's affair and the chaos she caused. It was embarrassing for us, for Jack's parents, and for everyone involved. Since then, I've been receiving threatening emails from random accounts, clearly belonging to Kylie. She blames me, saying it's all my fault, that I should have let her make her announcement so she wouldn't have been humiliated in front of everyone. I showed these messages to Jack, and he agrees with me that we did nothing wrong. He believes Kylie brought this upon herself. He might be biased, but I needed to ask others, was I too harsh in not allowing her to make her announcement? The response was overwhelming. When I posted, I expected maybe a few comments, but instead, hundreds flooded in. Many shared their thoughts, calling Kylie exactly what I had always suspected. They reassured me that I made the right call. Some of you asked if Isaac was really going to divorce her. Yes, he is. He has confirmed he's moving forward with it. And as for Kylie's attempt to salvage anything, she admitted it all in the end. She confessed that her affair was purely physical, that she had no real feelings for the other man, and now, she was pregnant. Isaac told me how she begged him for one of his cars, even trying to use her pregnancy as leverage. But Isaac was clear, it was none of his concern anymore. He moved on. We've stayed in touch with Isaac, and he and Jack have grown closer, often meeting on weekends. Jack's parents haven't spoken to Kylie since that day. Kylie, it seems, is truly alone now. For the sake of her child, I hope she makes better choices in the future.